From ABC News, this is World News Now.
The biggest nurses' strike in U.S. history is set to begin hours from now in Minnesota's Twin Cities. 12,000 nurses at a long list of Minneapolis-St. Paul hospitals are expected to be involved. They are striking over salary, pension, and staffing disputes. A similar walkout threat in California was stopped by a federal judge.
From ABC News, this is America This Morning with Jeremy Hubbard and Vanita Nair.
Thousands of nurses in Minnesota are ready for a one-day strike. Their union is protesting cost cuts in health care. A similar walkout threat in California was recently blocked by a federal judge.
ABC News, live in Times Square. This is Good Morning America with Robin Roberts and George Stephanopoulos.
And thousands of nurses are walking off the job and joining picket lines today in Minnesota, highlighting a problem that hospitals across the country are facing. As healthcare costs rise, nurses' pay and staffing levels have been cut. Nurses in California have also planned a strike, but a judge this week temporarily stopped them.
It's Fox and Friends.
My day is not a day without starting with y'all.
12,000 nurses in Minnesota walked off the job this morning, a one-day strike to protest what they saw as too much cost cutting. Most of the hospitals in the state are affected. They've taken steps to bring in temporary help. The nurses will go back to work at 6 a.m. Eastern tomorrow.
I put my hand up on your hip. When I dip, you dip, we dip, you.
And Minnesota's getting ready for the biggest nurses' strike in U.S. history. Almost 12,000 nurses are walking off the job for one day today, all due to contract disputes. The nurses are upset about reduced staffing, cuts to their pensions, and no pay raises. But replacement nurses are walking in to pick up the slack. Also because it's National Nursing Assistance Day, so they are there to help out. Those are your headlines. You're plugged into the news.
Nurses, thousands of them, walk out on strike. They say no one's listening to their concerns. They're hoping that changes after today. And live pictures coming to us right now into the CNN. More than 12,000 nurses in Minnesota on strike right now just for today. They're upset with the level of staffing where they work and say patients' health is at risk. And they're upset about their pension benefits. Scott Goldberg of CARE TV in Minneapolis reports on the strikes and who's taking their place.
The 14 hospitals where nurses are walking out are telling patients what happens on the inside won't look any different.
That's the thing, is that we're trying to make it as boring as possible.
They've flown in replacement workers. They say 2,800 temporary nurses, plus medically trained hospital managers who plan to take care of more patients than usual, will be more than enough to get through the one-day strike.
The role of the nurse is going to remain the same. We are going to have nurses there. And when the patients come in, are they going to receive services just like they always would? Yes.
The striking nurses want to bring attention to what they say are low staffing levels. The hospitals say the nurses are asking for rigid rules and higher pay, neither of which would improve patient care. Labor historian Peter Ratcliffe says the 24-hour strike gives nurses a relatively safe way to make their point.
One-day strike is a way to make sure that you're not going to be permanently replaced.
And yet, the hospital said all of the 12,000 nurses on strike won't necessarily have jobs on Friday. They'll be called back when they're needed, and this, historically, is not a busy time of year.
It's going to be a little bit of jockeying about how large a paycheck the individual nurses might miss. It might be bigger than one day's pay, but they don't risk at this point being permanently replaced.
And talk about timing. Preemie quadruplets were born Saturday at one of the 14 strike target hospitals. They were moved to the neonatal ICU of another hospital that wouldn't feel the effects of the strike. The baby's dad doesn't like getting caught in the middle of that dispute, though.
To be stuck in the middle of this kind of stinks, you know. You don't want to have to transfer your kids if you don't want to, you know. You just want them to be in that level of care that they should have until they're ready for the next step, instead of transferring in the middle of this.
The first hospital paid for that transfer. There was a similar plan in California. Thousands more nurses planned a one-day strike there, but a judge in San Francisco blocked those plans earlier this week. People who live along the Guadalupe River.
Bottom box, more than 12,000 hospital nurses in Minneapolis are hitting the picket lines today in a dispute over staffing levels and pension benefits.
We have some brand new video to show you of Joran Vandersloot.
The place for politics.
And in Minneapolis, hospitals say that patient care has not been affected by the largest nurses' strike in the nation's history. More than 12,000 nurses are holding a one-day strike in a dispute over staffing levels and pension plans. Okay, time for the battle of the late-night laughs.
12,000 nurses in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area are on strike today. The dispute is over staffing issues and pension benefits at 14 hospitals. Now, the hospitals say they've hired qualified replacements, and the immediate effect of the strike should be minimal. Healthcare costs have been skyrocketing, and hospitals are trying to trim their budgets. Nurse pay and benefits apparently are among their largest expenses. Well, U.S. Senate candidate Carly Fiorina